Pastor Victor, can you put the Bridge Summit slide up? I forgot to remind everybody. Bishop Joe is asking everybody if you would to sign up. You can scan the QR code here. You're going to see some of the different groups, and Alan Hurst, Dale Coulter, Mark Sharona, Bishop Vaughn McLaughlin, Dr. Michael Brown. I mean, the lineup is going to be incredible. And John Kelly will be part of there, Mark Pfeiffer, Doug Stringer, a lot of the people we're connected to through this network and through Bishop. It's going to be a great time together. And I'm looking for the exact date. I don't want to say it wrong. So Pastor Victor, if you could. Was the date on there, sir?
Let me bring up another. The thing is, when he gave me that particular flyer, that specific one didn't have.
It didn't have the date. Okay.
We'll give you the date.
All right. Just want to be able to make sure we're communicating effectively. And so, Pastor Victor, thank you for working on that, sir. And I want to be able to, just encourage all of you. This is something that might stretch your viewpoint. It might be something, a bigger picture we all need to be exposed to. So please set aside the time and take the time to connect and to listen to these sessions and those men and women who have walked before us and, who we're still running alongside, but we got to bridge the generations and those fathers in the faith. And so we'll find out what those dates are. It might be on the CCC website. Oh, here it is, June 15th. So coming up in just under 3 weeks. And so if you guys would just, you can register at uscal.us or scan the QR code there. And so if you're interested in this, please take advantage of it. And we'll be all joining you on there. So with that being said, Bishop Joe has given me the privilege to just share some things with you guys today. And as a brother to all of you, I want to just use this opportunity to remind us of some things. And as someone having an athletic background, playing football, and I had the privilege to play a few years of college football at the upper level there. And it was quite exhilarating in a lot of ways, playing at a higher level. But once you got there and you got past the emotion of it all, you realized it's the same fundamentals that you played in Pee Wee. And so I've become a lover of fundamentals. And so if I could pick on Kyle Watkins here, he's a champion Brazilian jiu-jitsu. But if I were to ask Kyle at the level he's at now, if he forgets a fundamental, what happens? He gets beaten. So Kyle, could you, I'm going to put you on the spot here. How important are fundamentals at the level that you're at?
I'll say it like this. If you lose your fundamentals, you lose your entire infrastructure. And so fundamentals are key, and it's foundational to the development of any athlete, practitioner, or the likings of becoming a world champion.
Thank you. You said it so eloquently. If you lose your foundation, your fundamentals, you lose your foundation. So as a Dallas Cowboy fan, tried and true, I'm sure I'm going to get some comments here, but I was born in Texas, and my first game I watched was the Cowboys, and I'm blue and silver through and through. But there's a certain football team that I have an extreme dislike for, and it's called the Green Bay Packers. And it's mainly because they beat us. And so their infamous coach, Vince Lombardi, he became coach in 1959. But one of the things that he did as winning coach that he was, he held three main priorities, and he focused on fundamentals. So God was his highest priority. Even though he was a good Catholic, I couldn't really necessarily say he had a relationship with Jesus, but he was religious. And his second priority was family. And then third priority was the Packers. And anything that deviated from those priorities, he wouldn't tolerate. And so in 1960, the Packers lost the NFL championship to the Philadelphia Eagles. And as he approached training camp in 1961, he started something that he is still known for today. His philosophy and strategy was take nothing for granted. Take nothing for granted. So he walked in training camp and holding a football in his right hand. And sorry, I totally forgot to start my PowerPoint here. I'm going to have you guys go through this with me. Holding a football in his hand. We're going to talk about the Lombardi principles today. He said that football is a sport based on the fundamentals of winning, strength, speed, and self-discipline. But because he took nothing for granted, he said, gentlemen, this is a football. And he is still known for that statement 50, almost 60 years since he made it in 1961. And every time he started training camp, because he lived by the principle, take nothing for granted, he went back to page 1 of the playbook and he held up a football and he said, this is a football. He was coaching professional athletes who, by all right, didn't need any reminders. They knew what it was. But he understood if you don't remember your fundamentals, you lose your foundation. I believe God is the same way. Usually the difference between success and failure in life is it boils down to a fundamental. If you're watching a championship game or a championship match of any time, it is usually the person who breaks a fundamental or doesn't do it that loses. Holding the football with one hand instead of two. They fumble in a championship game, lose the game. Okay, it always breaks down to a loss of a fundamental. So today I'm going to talk about 10 fundamentals that comes in the form of the word little. So we're going to be focusing on the word little and the scriptures that God, through the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, revealed to men that are still foundational principles we need to live by today. So I want to give you guys permission. The last thing I want to do is lecture a bunch of men and women at your stature. I want to learn with you. So if there is any point that you say, hey, can we expand on this? Or, hey, what about this? I want you to unmute yourself and I want you to comment on these. So my heart is to remind us of the fundamentals, because sometimes church ministry, parachurch ministry, all the different things we're in, we make it so complicated. And God has boiled it down to the littles. And these are the fundamentals we have to live by. So if you guys would take a journey with me. So the first one, I want to make sure my screen's still, Exodus 23:30. As the Israelites were coming out of captivity in Egypt, God said, I'm going to take you into the promised land. It's going to be a land flowing in milk and honey. It's going to be wonderful, but I'm not going to drive out all your enemies at one time. I'm going to drive them out little by little until you become fruitful. And then he warned them that there were going to be times that because they weren't structured, because they couldn't feel it, that the land would be taken over by beasts, that if they went too fast, it would be detrimental to them. As leaders, we cannot despise the process that God has us in. He grows us little by little instead of all at once. Because if we grew all at once, we wouldn't have the character, the integrity, the structure to handle it. But I know so many leaders that are kicking at the bit who were just chomping that, oh, I got to get more, I got to do more, I got to expand, I got to expand, I got to expand. and they despise the process that God has them in. And I found that when I get ahead of the Lord and try to expand too quickly, it always costs me. And Jesus or Paul, they all lived by this. It was little by little. And I want to just make this statement. I found in the 30 years that I've been in vocational ministry that things rarely last to the next generation if they're built too quickly. Things rarely last to the next generation if they're built too quickly. So please, as leaders, don't despise the process. He says, thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. He didn't say he was going to show you what's happening a mile down the road. He said, I'm going to show you step by step, so you partner with me so that we can do it. Number 2, this is when Saul was being rebuked by Samuel. And he says, though you were little in your own eyes, you were made the head of the tribes of Israel. As leaders, we must stay little in our own eyes. If we ever begin to believe our own press, or if the voice of the people we're leading is louder than the shepherds in our life who are leading us, we're going to get in trouble, just like Saul did. Saul listened to the voice of the people and gave into the pressure, and he rejected the voice of Samuel and the voice of God that were shepherding him. Pride, as we all know, leads to destruction. God has to be the one to exalt us. We cannot exalt ourselves. We must stay small in our own eyes. James 4, a verse that puts the fear of God in me. God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. I don't want to be somebody that is resisting or that is being resisted by God. That verse scares me. I want to be humble and say, Lord, you exalt me in your due time, and don't let me despise this process. Help me stay small in my own eyes. This is the second little that we need to be aware of. Once again, if you guys have any comments, please make them. Please add to this conversation, because we're brothers and sisters on this call, and I want us to learn together. So number 3, this is when the prophet Elijah was going to Zarephath, and it was after he spoke the famine. He went to the river and God fed him. The river began to dry up, and he said, go to Zarephath. And he met a widow woman who said, I'm getting ready to go in and eat my last meal with my kids that we can die. And Elijah said, can you do this? And she said, I only have a little oil in a jar. As leaders, we're only responsible to fill or to pour out what's in our jar. God is asking us to give him what we have, and he's responsible for providing the rest. Our position must always be hunger, and Lord, fill us up, because in and of myself, I have nothing else to give. And if I give to him first, then the flow never stops. Just like the flow